Morning, West Side. So I was watching a movie the other day, and the female character was deliberating on whether or not to accept a man's proposal, marriage proposal. And she had declined, she told him no, and now she was second-guessing that decision, going back and forth aloud with an older, wiser character who kept asking the question, do you love him? Well, this and that, but do you love him? And the subtext was very strongly suggesting that if she felt a certain way about this guy, she should marry him. And I think this scene, and perhaps most of our conventional thinking about love and marriage and the way those two things relate to each other, might have it exactly backwards. Though it's certainly not wrong to marry someone you love, I'm not saying that. I do wonder if actually the best a person can do is marry someone they really, really like, lean in to that unique, lifelong commitment that marriage is, and allow marriage to teach them how to love, actually love another human being. Now, that's just a little chip theory, but I really do wonder if love, real love, cannot possibly precede the marriage commitment, but can only follow it. That might be how it is. It might be. So maybe instead of asking, but do you love him, a better question for that wise character to ask might have been, do you wish to learn to love him? Is he the one you want to learn to truly love? Because if so, then commit your life to him. Vow to treat him well. And in the years to come, make good on that promise, regardless of your feelings, and you'll learn love. So we're talking about love and marriage today, which is always a little tricky because I know I am talking to a very diverse group of people here. I know I'm talking to people who are married and those who are unmarried, and maybe yet others who feel like they're somewhere in between. And I know I'm talking to some who are just excited about the subject. I'm talking to all those infatuated fiancés and newlyweds, all those 50-year anniversary oldie-weds, to all those with healthy marriages who are eager to export the quality of their love to the next generation. And I'm also talking to those for whom marriage is a tender subject, perhaps because of loss or divorce or something maybe even worse. Or perhaps it's tender to others because they long to be married. And this is yet another reminder that they aren't right now, and that stings a little bit. I know I'm talking to some who might feel a little exposed by the subject because maybe they're in a marriage in crisis, or perhaps they're in a marriage that's been stable for years, but it has also been very unsatisfying for years. I'm also talking to those who see the subject of marriage as completely irrelevant, maybe because they've given up on that idea of being married, or maybe given their personal experience with unhealthy marriages, or given their generational cynicism toward the whole institution, they have no plans of getting married. Well, no matter where you're at in all this, I suspect that we can agree on this, that healthy marriages are a tremendous gift to this world that we live in. They are gifts to the individuals in the marriage, gifts to those surrounding the marriage. A healthy marriage can bring unparalleled stability to a family, a deep base of security and safety for the lives and well-being of the children. It can bring a kind of companionship that is unmatched by any other partnership or institution. For anyone paying attention, healthy marriages give this world a unique demonstration of divine love lived out right here in the ordinary. And I also think another thing that we can probably agree on is that marriage is incredibly easy. said no one ever, right? No one says that. No one gets into marriage. At least they don't get past the newlywed years and think, man, who knew marriage was this easy? Marriage doesn't demand anything from me that I am not already eager and willing to give. No one has ever said that. Ask anyone in a marriage that's struggling, ask anyone in a marriage that's healthy, and they'll all tell you the same thing. Marriage is tough. Marriage is hard. It's difficult. Add to that difficulty our growing need for immediacy and convenience, and our swelling sense of entitlement to things, being custom fitted to us, being algorithmically curated to our particular set of likes and dislikes, and you end up with a lot of people who are opting not to marry these days. There are more never married 25 to 34-year-olds right now than ever before. Chesterton has a great quote about Christianity. He said, the Christian ideal has not been tried and found wanting. It has rather been found difficult and left untried. And I wonder if the same thing is true about marriage. I wonder if you can say that the ideal of marriage, the kind of love that God intends for marriages, has not been tried and found wanting, found lacking. Rather, it has been found difficult again and again and again and left untried. The kind of love God intends to run marriages, married love. What in the world does that word love even mean? I mean, an English word is pretty vague and unclear, used in an unhelpfully wide range of situations, which makes it a little confusing. I mean, love, for example, love is the word for my feelings about my wife and my kids and my brother and sister and my parents and my friends and my country, all the way down to my favorite foods. Seriously? The same word? Come on. Like, these have got to be different kinds of love, don't they? You know this to be true. You know it's a bad idea for me on my anniversary to look Chelsea in the eye and say to her, Chelsea, I love you like I love cheesecake. That's a bad idea. Actually, you know what? That's not a bad line right there. That's pretty strong. She might not think so, but I mean, that'd be from the heart, right? Now, those are different loves, aren't they? Requiring entirely different sets of muscles in the human heart. Love is what would motivate me to sacrifice my life for my kids. I love my kids. And it's what motivates me to watch Ryan Gosling in yet another one of his movies. I love that dude. Seriously? The same word for both of those? Come on, English. You can't tell me that those are the same. I think English might have gotten a little lazy with this semantic field. At least the Greeks had 4 different words for 4 different kinds of love. Storge is the first one. That's the word for that instinctual, protective love, as a parent might have for a child. Eros, the word that we get erotic from, for erotic love, as two lovers in a passionate embrace might feel. Phileo, that's brotherly affection, that kind of love, as in the word, the name of the city Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. And you find phileo all over the Bible, and likewise, you find this 4th word, agape. Maybe you've heard that word, agape. Agape is the kind of love that is least like a feeling and much more like an action, a behavior. Agape is something you do. Agape is the only kind of love that can really be commanded because it's the most subject to our will and self-discipline. It's a behavior driven not by affection as much as by principle, though it does result in feelings of affection. You don't find a lot of fiction books writing about agape love. They don't sell because agape is the least sexy and least exciting kind of love, though it is the most generous and the most quietly sacrificial kind of love. And it's probably the only kind that can really build a healthy, lifelong marriage. So I looked up the English word love in Webster's and then again in Cambridge dictionaries, and I found something that actually troubles me. the definitions for the verb love, though there were a handful of definitions, none of them seem to get beyond love as a feeling of strong affection and enjoyment, as if to love someone or something is simply to have a feeling of really, really liking them. And I'm troubled by this on a couple levels. First of all, I'm afraid that these dictionaries are not even aware of the most basic and foundational kind of love found in healthy marriages. That's a problem if that's true. And secondly, they don't even seem remotely aware of Jesus' understanding of love, which is strange to me because, come on, I mean, is there anyone in history who's done more for the word love than Jesus? I mean, what did Jesus mean when he used the word love, when he commanded love? His use of the word typically doesn't even make sense if you think of love only as a feeling. If you're going to even begin to understand Jesus' teachings, you've got to understand love as a behavior, something you choose to do, a way of treating others, and of course, the feelings that follow those choices. So Jesus in Luke says a line I think you've probably heard before. Luke 6, he says, love your enemies. He's using the word agape there. And is he talking about, feeling a certain way about your enemies? No. Like that wouldn't even make sense if he's saying that. No, he's talking about treating them a certain way. Listen to the verbs that he goes on to use here to elaborate on the kind of love that he's talking about. Listen to this. He says, do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on the one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone, like one of those detestable Roman soldiers, demands your coat, which I hope doesn't happen today, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Treat others as you wish to be treated. If you love only those who love you, he's still talking about love here, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good only to those who do good to you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners do that much. Again, love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High God. For he is kind. Throughout history, he has been so ridiculously kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. This kind of love that Jesus is talking about, that he's commanding here, it sounds so advanced, doesn't it? Like a really super mature kind of love. What if this kind of love that he's talking about, what if this is just love in its most basic form? That might just be how Jesus sees it. Because whenever you love with strings attached, whenever you love others expecting to get something in return, who is it that you're actually loving? Who is it that you are actually giving to? That's just a clever way of giving to yourself, loving yourself, isn't it? But when you give, not to get, but when you give, not for your own sake, but simply for the sake of the other, when you love others simply by doing good to them, regardless of their deserving, regardless of their thankful response, regardless of your feelings toward them and theirs toward you, when you love like that, you are loving in the way that God loves. And when you do, you reflect the divine love into this world that needs it so desperately, undoing self-centeredness bit by bit through undeserved kindness. So there's a lot of reasons, good reasons, to get married. Marriage offers a truly unique kind of companionship that can be a powerful antidote to loneliness. Marriage can create the right kind of stability for raising and launching well-adjusted kids into the world. Marriage tends to offer more financial stability to a couple. Marriage is, of course, necessary if you're wanting to experience sex the way that God designed it and intends for it to be experienced. But of all the reasons, there's one reason that rises above the others as not only the most common and most often cited reason, but also as the one believed to be the strongest reason. So strong, it looks down on all the other reasons for marriage. And it's often used to trump reasons that a couple shouldn't get married. Should I marry him? Well, do you love him? Because if you love each other, and by that, what I mean is if you are in love with each other, then who could possibly question the wisdom of your decision to marry each other? Well, they're in love. Who can blame them, right? Now, this logic seems to forget, as common as it is, it seems to forget that you can fall in love with all kinds of people who would not make a good spouse for you. It forgets that really any two fools can fall in love with each other, madly in love with each other. Does that mean they're going to have a good marriage? No. Does that mean that either one of them has what it takes to build a marriage that will last beyond a couple years? No. No, the intensity of their in-loveness, their infatuation with each other, is no indication of the success, the future success, or the future quality of their marriage. And while there's something clearly foolish about that logic, there's also actually something that it almost gets right. C.S. Lewis talks about this in Mere Christianity, pointing out that being in love is an intensely wonderful feeling. But it is still a feeling, and feelings don't last. Principles can last. Habits can last, but feelings, they come and they go. But what's striking about the feeling of being in love is not just its intensity, but the behavior it tends to prompt in the people feeling it. Have you noticed that those who are in love are prone to make promises? Have you noticed this? Promises of sacrifice and fidelity and eternal constancy. See, although the feeling of being in love might be a fleeting one, it inspires a kind of love that is not fleeting, it is lasting. The feeling actually seems designed to introduce into the relationship a quieter, more mature kind of love, rooted in commitment. Lewis describes this love as a deep unity, maintained by the will and deliberately strengthened by habit. Being in love, he says, first moved the couple to promise fidelity. This quieter love enables them to keep that promise. It is on this quieter love that the engine of marriage is run. Being in love was the explosion that started it. This might surprise you, but I actually think we can learn a thing or two about marriage from unmarried couples that live together. All right, now taking the whole premarital sex thing out of the equation, not even talking about that right now, just take that out of this if you can, and hear me out. You would think that living together before you're married would be helpful for couples and would lead to more marital success. You would think this. Maybe you do think this. I would think this. The world that we live in clearly thinks this. I could think of actually several reasons why it seems to me like living together before getting married would decrease the couple's odds of divorcing in the future and actually increase the odds of the couple ending up in a satisfactory marriage. For one, living together enables a couple to spend more time together. All right, that's a good thing, isn't it? I mean, isn't it good to go into your marriage with more time spent together? Also, living together, clearly, it's no secret here, it saves a lot of money. Going into marriage with more funds, less financial stress, boy, that's a good thing, isn't it? But the obvious one is this. If you've lived together, you've had the chance to test out your living style compatibility, right? Like you've had the chance to really see how you live with each other in the same space. And you've determined if you can be adequately peaceful roommates with each other. I mean, that's a big part of marriage, isn't it? I mean, how could that kind of trial run not lead to better marriages? I mean, you might even think it's crazy not to test drive the relationship in that way. I mean, how else are you supposed to know if you're sufficiently compatible with each other for marriage? So yeah, you would think that living together improves your odds of landing in a great marriage, but the data don't bear that out at all. Matter of fact, the data actually don't just not say that, they say the opposite, which is wild. Like, whenever this issue has been studied, and it's actually been studied quite a few times in the last couple decades by different universities, and the research repeatedly shows that cohabitation leads to lower marriage stability and lower marriage satisfaction, not higher. Exactly the opposite of what you might expect, what I would expect. How could that be? Well, there's lots of people's explanations that people have offered. First of all, women more often see living together as a step toward marriage, whereas men more often see it as a way of stalling or postponing the marriage decision. So, that's not awesome. Another explanation, people's standards for a live-in partner are generally lower than for a lifelong spouse. So people end up sliding into marriage with substandard partners. And there's something to that slide into marriage. See, a couple will typically have this unspoken agreement that, if this arrangement goes well, without too much trouble in the short term, then we should be able to make this pretty much same arrangement work in the long term without too much trouble. And sure enough, it goes okay in the short term. Everybody's on their best behavior. And so the couple ends up sliding into the marriage relationship rather than deciding to marry each other. And here's the deal, that slide operates on the mistaken belief that the marriage relationship is simply a long-term extension of the living together arrangement. But it's not. Surprise! Marriage is a completely different animal. It requires and exercises a completely different set of muscles. Living together is, you might say it this way, is a conditional arrangement that operates on compatibility. It basically says, hey, if we discover that we're compatible and we don't quarrel too much, about domestic concerns that just go with living in each other's spaces, well, then we'll stay together and maybe even get married. If you're wanting to get married, that is not the muscle that you want to strengthen. That conditional arrangement muscle is not going to work for you. Because marriage is an unconditional arrangement that operates on commitment, not compatibility. It actually says, hey, like it or not, we're together from here forward. So we're going to make the most of it. And when, not if, but when we discover areas of deep incompatibility between us, we're going to serve each other, we're going to value each other's desires and needs, thereby creating new levels of compatibility and union with each other. It actually appears that lasting compatibility is created, not discovered. So when you're looking for a spouse, you're not looking for compatible living styles. That's not what you should be focused on. You should be looking for integrity. Is this person the kind of person who does the right thing when he or she does not feel like it? Even when it's costly, when it's uncomfortable, when it's painful, do they do the right thing? Because that is what good spouses do. That's what a healthy marriage does all the time. Do they apologize when they don't feel like apologizing? Do they speak the truth and live according to it? Do they mean what they say and say what they mean? Is his or her life marked by integrity, doing the right thing, precisely when it's the harder thing to do? When you're looking for a spouse, you're not only looking for how the person treats you, that's obviously important. You're also looking for how this person treats the people in his or her life who are the hardest to love, because that's going to be you. How they talk about those challenging people when they're not present. How they talk about their parents, their siblings, their exes, people who have wronged them. Is it with honor and respect? Is it with self-control, giving others the benefit of the doubt? Or is it with a quickness to be offended? Is it with resentment and contempt? Is this person's life marked by grace, treating others in the way God has treated them? That's what you got to look for. See, when a couple stands face to face on the altar, vowing their love to each other, they are not promising to feel a certain way about each other till death do them part. How could they? That would be like vowing never to get a headache again, right? They are promising rather to treat each other a certain way, even when the feelings aren't there. And when they make good on those promises in the years to come, sometimes gritting their teeth and saying, I'm going to treat you with kindness and respect right now because I said I would on my wedding day. The feelings of love, believe it or not, love follows. Because right feelings, maybe you've heard me say this, maybe you've heard Eddie say this, right feelings follow right actions. God has designed love to work exactly that way. When you treat people the way that you would treat them if you felt love and affection for them, then you'll end up with feelings of love and affection for them. You can do this with anybody in your life. You can do this with your coworkers, the annoying ones. You can do this with your enemies, even people you might find yourself married to. You should try it. Figure out what you would do if you felt a deep sense of love and affection for them. Make a list of those things. You would speak politely to them with common courtesy. You would thank them for the things they do and contribute. You'd affirm them for the positive characteristics they bring. You'd be patient with their flaws. You'd be quick to listen to them, hungry to understand what makes them tick. You would try to say yes to them as much as you could. You'd be the first to apologize to them in a quarrel. You would come to their defense if you heard them being criticized. You would make sure that they knew their dreams and their fears were safe with you. You would serve them with a smile on your face. You would study them, figure out what they like, and you would have it ready for them first thing in the morning. You'd spend time thinking about what brings them joy, and you would do your best to deliver it. And you would do it all without needing or expecting anything in return. That's what you would do. So make that list and then do that list and just see what happens. See what feelings follow. Have you heard the one about that shrewd, clever attorney? The wife came in wanting to divorce her jerk husband, and she really wanted to hurt him, to punish him for being such a bad husband, punitive. And so the attorney said, hey, I got an idea. If you really want this to sting him, let's go ahead. Let's draw up the divorce papers, only we're going to date them for 6 months down the road, 6 months into the future. And then, in the meantime, for the next 6 months, you be the best wife you can be for him. You be the wife of his dreams. And then after 6 months of that, then you drop those divorce papers on him. That's the way to rip his heart out right there. He won't know what hit him. And so that's what she did. She served him as the best wife she could be for 6 months, and I bet you know what happened. Hey, could we shred those divorce papers I had you draw up? We're not going to be needing those anymore. Oh? Did your husband change? No, he's still pretty much the same. But my heart toward him has changed. I love him too much to divorce him. This is how God has designed our hearts to work. We lead them into love. So Paul in Galatians, he says a man reaps what he sows. This is true in so many ways in our universe. What you end up harvesting in the fall is directly related, wouldn't you know it? It's directly related to the kind of seeds that you planted in the spring. This is just how God designed this universe to work. So when you sow seeds of hatred and contempt in a relationship, don't be surprised when you later reap a harvest of hatred and contempt. And when you plant seeds of selfless love, doing good to others today, you can expect to reap a harvest of something really good tomorrow. Paul says, let us not become weary. Don't get tired of doing good, because at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. Maybe you've heard me share this before. I was in my 20s, I was single, when my friend Mike got married. I remember asking him soon after he got back from his honeymoon, I was like, so Mike, how's the married life? And I will never forget his response, because it didn't make any sense to me at the time. He said, oh man, I didn't realize how selfish I was until I got married. And not only was that not the answer I was looking for, that wasn't even the kind of answer I was looking for. His answer didn't even compute in my brain at the time. But I remember it because it did open me up to the possibility that marriage might be about bigger, higher things than I had previously understood. It might be bigger than me and what I want. Gary Thomas is the author who famously said that marriage, maybe you've heard me quote him before, marriage isn't designed to make you happy, it's designed to make you holy, more Christ-like. Perhaps you've heard that, perhaps found that to be true. Because, man, like no other institution on earth, marriage exposes areas of self-centeredness and pride in a person's life like no other. And that's never a comfortable process. That is not easy in any way. That is always going to be a difficult process because we are so prone to self-absorption. And if you resist that process in your marriage, denying the obvious things that marriage is bringing to the surface and clinging to your self-centeredness, I suspect marriage won't just be hard for you, it'll be brutal. But if you lean into it, trusting the marriage process to refine you like a fire, trusting it to bring your sin to the surface so that God can kill it, then you'll find your marriage to be a daily invitation to learn to love as God loves, the way He has loved you.